I'm Ben Gonzalez with the Texas Department of Insurance, and this is the Texas Insurance Podcast. On each episode, we look at an insurance topic, why it's important to you, and then offer some tips to help save you some money or protect your family and property. So today we're talking about auto insurance and what you can do to maybe rein in some of those costs. Some drivers are finding that their renewal notices may have a rate increase this time around. And joining us today is John Mooney. He's a manager in TDI's Property and Casualty Division. And John's going to tell us what we need to consider if you're thinking about changing coverage or companies to try to save some money. Hello, John.
Hello, Ben. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for being here again. So what's going on in the marketplace right now that may be putting some upward pressure on auto insurance costs?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. The first one right now is as we've 2+ years into the COVID-19 and the pandemic, there has been a return, more vehicles out on the road. So you are seeing more accidents than there were previously when a lot of folks were working from home. A lot of the school age high schools and colleges, you didn't have as many drivers there. So that's playing into it. So you're seeing more accidents from that standpoint. Also, too, is the parts are hard to come by, and there's been a price increase on that. Without diving too much into inflation, everything seems to be costing more in the country, and so that's driving up parts, the price on parts and labor rates as well. And then also the last component that we're seeing also too is the technology advancement in vehicles, whether it's electric batteries, you see all the vehicles now will self-park for you, the technology and the computer advancement in cars. So therefore, those parts cost more. So therefore, if your vehicle is damaged, then you're going to see a higher increase in the cost to repair your vehicle to restore you back to a pre-loss condition.
Yeah, we just recently went car shopping, and this is the first car we have that has blind spot detection and forward braking and rear pedestrian views. And so all that stuff costs money, I guess, if it goes out and needs to be fixed.
Yeah, that's the one thing. If you haven't shopped for a car in a while, then you'll notice the technology advancements are off the charts compared they were even 3 to 5 years ago.
Right. And so if it costs more to get a car fixed, that means it's going to cost more to get it insured. But one thing we try to tell people is that shopping can help as far as controlling what you'll pay for insurance. But then on the other hand, a lot of people get into the habit of just staying with one company or insurer their whole life and not checking. Who can benefit from shopping around for auto insurance?
Yeah, it's pretty much everybody can benefit from them because as time goes on, life-changing events happen. You may have that high school age child that's driving up your rates that lives in your household, but then they move out and they may be on their own. So you want to let your company know about that if life events change. Or if they stay on your policy through college and they graduate, that's a huge savings that could occur there. It never hurts to talk to your existing company, whether it's an agent, if they have it, or a representative from the company, and just go through different things. First one that comes to mind is a lot of companies will offer discounts if you have multiple types of insurance with them. If you have a home or an apartment, coupled in with your auto insurance and possibly a life insurance even. A lot of consumers have umbrella policies that go on top of your home and your auto. If you get all of those with the same company, you can get a discount possibly with them. So talk to your company about that. If you have your auto with one company and your home with another, talk to each company and see who will give you a better deal. Now, you have to be careful, make sure the coverage is the same because that could be affecting the price. Also, too, is if looking at discounts, if we mentioned the teenagers that are in high school or in college, are there good grade discounts? Are there driver's education discounts? A lot of companies will give you a discount if your child takes the driver's ed course or if they make the honor roll. So it never hurts to ask your company about any of those discounts that they offer.
And the discounts, they can vary between companies, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Just it vary from company to company. One might offer better than the other one, but then you also too have to look at The rate might be cheaper with one company, but it might not be the same coverage. So you always have to compare the coverages.
Right. So you have to do a little work there and kind of gauging those discounts or prices and make sure you're looking at the same coverage.
Correct.
Okay. What about per mileage based plans? That could be a way to save some money, correct?
Yeah, a lot of the companies now offer a mileage base. Your premium's based off of how many miles you drive, whether it's monthly or quarterly or maybe even annually. So talk to a company, or if you shop around and see if you're in a situation with the pandemic where you're allowed to work from home 5 days a week and don't have to go into the office, there may be a mileage-based factor as well. You also may want to let your company know that you're doing that, because they may be basing your premium off of if you live out and you're doing a 40, 50 mile commute a day to the office, but you're not doing that anymore. That's a greater risk for the company. So you may want to let your company know about that you're working from home, coupled with the premium may be based off of the fewer miles you drive, the cheaper your insurance could be.
So your company should be telling you which discounts you qualify for, but they're not going to know what your situation is unless you tell them.
Correct. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, it's always good, whether every 6 months or a year, to do an inventory of your personal situation, because there are life-changing events. So if you're working from home now all the time, you should let your insurance company know about that. Okay.
So that's a big one, is how far you're driving, and I guess what kind of vehicle there is. But what else do companies look at when they're deciding what you're going to pay? Because we know it can be different even from your neighbor in the next house over.
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors that companies look at. Probably the two biggest ones is your driving history. So if you hopefully haven't had accidents in quite a few years where you're at fault, you could potentially get a lower premium. Then also too is age. There's factors out there about age, whether it's a youthful teenage driver compared to somebody that's potentially 40, 50 years or older. The rates could be affected on age as well. Credit history gets looked at as well. There's different companies will potentially look at your credit history, because the thought process is if you have a good credit, then you potentially are a better driver. So those are probably the main components that are looked at when you're looking at factoring in how much you're going to pay for your car insurance.
Okay. And again, this kind of formula of what they use to factor in, or what they consider, that also varies from company to company?
Yeah. Different companies will use different factors with that. So you can just, as much information as you can get to the company, and then they'll do their research on their end as well. But any information that you can give to the company could potentially lower your insurance. Okay.
And so we've gotten a few calls recently from consumers and from the media saying that they've noticed some price increases, but the only time you really see those increases is at renewal time. Is that right?
Yeah, typically you would see them at the renewal time. Now, if you make some changes on your own, like I've seen situations where you'll have a child that's away at college and they don't take the car with them, you can contact your insurance company and they'll reduce your premium because they're not driving a car on a regular basis if they're out of town in college. Now, if you add that child back during the period before the renewal, you will see a rate increase. So if you make some changes, if you buy an additional car and things like that, you could see a rate increase during the policy period. Say if you have a 6-month policy period and you paid the 6 months premium, you buy a car halfway into that, an additional car, then you're going to see a rate increase. But typically, if everything stays the same and stays status quo, then you would typically see your rate increases at renewal.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I think we have a 6-month policy as opposed to an annual thing. But if a consumer does see that they've gotten a new statement and it shows an increase in their premium, what should they do at that point? Is there anything they can do?
Yeah, you talk to your company and just ask them, what were the reasons why did it go up? Is it for various reasons that something might have occurred with your individual driving habits? You might have had a loss. You might have had an accident where you were at fault recently, and therefore the rates went up for that. It could have been various reasons that they have to tell you. So just have some conversations with your company and just ask them.
Yeah, have them explain it to you. Right? So if you've decided that, well, it's time for me to shop, I haven't done it in a few years, or maybe this rate increase is too much for me, what should people do? Do you have any tips for specific things that people can do as they go out there and shop?
Yeah, one thing you can do is on our website at tdi.texas.gov. It's easy to find. There's an automobile insurance guide on the top of the webpage. Across the topics, just click on A, scroll on down to automobile insurance guide, and there's a ton of information on there that talks about what the different types of coverages are, what's available, what's required coverage in the state of Texas, and what kind of insurance you have to have, what's optional. So it goes into a lot of different detail from that perspective. The one thing to consider when you're looking at price is making sure it's the same type of coverage. So if company A quotes you a dollar amount and then company B quotes you 50% less, are you getting the same coverage? And that's what you have to be careful about and watch and be mindful of.
I was just going to ask about, when you say different coverage, are we talking about the limits on the policy or just various services?
Could be all of that. It could be on the liability limits, or if you do a different deductible on the comprehensive and collision, on the physical damage to your vehicle. You may tell company A you want a $500 deductible. You tell company B a $1,000 deductible. In theory, the $1,000 deductible should be cheaper coverage. So limits, if you choose different limits, different deductibles, and looking about what the policy covers, because there could be a difference, and it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Can we go back and talk about deductibles for just a moment? For people that don't know what that is, explain how raising the deductible might help you in the monthly costs.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing them back up, because doing this every day, all day, I just start rolling real fast with the terms and things like that. But yeah, deductible works on your physical damage coverage. There's two types of physical damage coverage, comprehensive and collision. So comprehensive will typically cover you for like the storms that rolled through the other night. Mm-hmm. If you had hail damage or a tree fell in your car, if your car's flooded, if you hit an animal like a deer driving, that's typically covered under comprehensive. Collision is when you're involved in an accident, or if you back up into another car at a parking lot, or if you hit a pedestrian, things like that, if you're involved in a collision. And then you have a deductible. A lot will choose $100, $250, $500, up to $1,000. You can get various amounts. So if it costs $10,000 to repair your car and you have a $500 deductible, your insurance company would pay $9,500.
So you pay that deductible before the insurance kicks in?
Correct. Yeah, you would.
Each time that there's a claim?
Each time there's a claim, correct. So yeah, if you have the $500 deductible and you get your vehicle repaired, you would be responsible for that first $500 to the body shop. The insurance company would pay the other $9,500. The only thing to watch out for then is on a total loss, the company is not going to pay more to repair the vehicle than what the vehicle is worth. So there is going to be a limit on how much they're going to pay you to fix your car. So if your car is worth $40,000 and it costs $50,000 to repair it, they're going to write you a check for the $40,000, the actual cash value of the vehicle.
And that's when the car is totaled, meaning they're taking possession of it. They're not going to fix it.
Well, on total losses, you do have an option, what's called owner retain. Mm-hmm. So they will deduct the salvage value from that, in that example I gave earlier, of $40,000. If they could get $5,000 at auction, they'll deduct that from the offer. And then you can work with the DMV on how to get your vehicle titled. After that, you can owner retain total losses.
Okay. Well, we started talking about the collision and comp. Those are kind of sold as a package, right? Most of the time.
Yeah, typically in Texas, liability is the only coverage that's required. The state minimum is 30, 60, 25. So for bodily injury, it's $30,000, $60,000, then $25,000 for property. Physical damage coverage, a lot of companies will call it Part D, but that's typically sold in a package. You might be able to buy it individually, but most times they usually sell it together, because you probably, if you want your car repaired, you probably would want it if it's damaged while you're driving, or if it's parked in the driveway and a tree would fall on it. Either way. So it probably does make sense to buy the comp and collision together.
Now, yeah, you mentioned liability there. That's the part that's required by the state, correct? And that doesn't do anything to fix your car, right?
No, it would not fix your car. It takes care of your, whether it's injuries or property damage to a third party, another individual when you're at fault in the accident.
So if you're at fault, your liability coverage pays for the other driver's property or injury.
Correct.
But it doesn't do anything for your car.
It won't do anything to fix your car.
That's where the comp and collision comes in.
Correct, yes.
What about the uninsured motorist coverage?
Yeah, uninsured, and also it's usually sold as a package is with underinsured. So that would cover you if you're out driving on the road, or even if you're in a parking lot at a store. If somebody who doesn't have insurance, that's the uninsured. That would fix your car, and if you're injured in it, that would take care of it. And then underinsured, if the person who's at fault in the accident doesn't have enough insurance, if their liability is inadequate, then your underinsured motorist would kick in at that point.
You mentioned the parking lot there. If somebody hits you and causes some damage but doesn't stick around or doesn't leave a note, would underinsured or uninsured driver coverage help you?
You'd have to look at the policy language of what is in your uninsured motorist, but there is a chance, and there might be some stipulations in there that there might have to be an independent witness. You might have to call the police. You might have to follow or at least contact the police. But yeah, there's certain terms and conditions that would need to be met. But if there's a hit and run situation where they don't stay around and damage your vehicle, there's a pretty good chance that you could get your vehicle repaired under your uninsured motorist coverage.
So we covered liability, comp and collision, underinsured and uninsured motorists. Any other kind of extras that people might encounter as they're shopping?
Yeah, there's some other ones like the medical coverage is personal injury protection, or PIP, medical payments coverage as well. That'll take care of you as a driver or any occupants in your car. If you're injured in an accident, you could get your medical bills and potentially some doctor's visits, lost wages, things like that could get taken care of. So there's some medical coverage there. A lot of companies will sell rental coverage. So if your vehicle has to go in the shop to get repaired because of a claim, you can go get a rental replacement vehicle while it's being repaired, and the insurance company will pay for that. And then there's emergency roadside service and towing. A lot of folks will buy those too. So if you're broken down on the side of the road, you can call your insurance company or call a tow truck and you can get reimbursed for that. So that's probably the biggest ones. Would be the towing, the rental, emergency roadside service, and the medical coverage.
So if you're interested in those things, that's another thing that you'd want to compare between companies if you're trying to make that choice.
Yeah.
Okay. One other question that we see occasionally is we know that the lender is going to want you to have that comp or require you to have that comp and collision if you're still paying for the car and still have a loan on it. But then we've heard people say, well, that's my technique for lowering my costs. If I'm done paying for the car, can I just drop that comp and collision and just drive with liability? Yeah,
as you mentioned, your lien holder, the mortgage company that's going to finance the vehicle, more than likely they're going to require you have comp and collision. So if the vehicle is paid off, there's no requirement that you carry comp and collision. As we mentioned earlier, liability coverage is the only one that's required in the state of Texas. So I think it's an individual choice that has to be made. You have to analyze your situation on what it's going to cost. And so if you crunch the numbers and when you talk to the insurance company, what is that premium going to cost for comp and collision? If it's a 20-year-old vehicle that you drive occasionally, I know a lot of folks in Texas have the ranch or the farm and they like to keep that old pickup truck around. They may not want to have comp and collision on that.
Never leaves the property.
Right, never leaves the property. Or if they do run into town to the store, they're covered from a liability standpoint to satisfy the law from that standpoint. But then you have to ask yourself is if that vehicle does get damaged and you can't drive it and you were at fault in the accident, or if the tree fell on it and it would have been covered under comp, can you do without that vehicle? And so that's when you have to crunch the numbers to see it's going to cost X dollars per month to carry comp and collision. I really need to have this vehicle repaired. if I'm at fault or if it floods or if it's hail damage. So it's really just an individual choice.
Yeah, especially if it's like you said, maybe it's your only vehicle or the family's only vehicle to get them to work. You're taking a gamble there.
Yeah, it is a gamble. It might be easy to say, well, it's going to save me $50 or $100 a month or whatever it is, and that can add up over time. But you have to think through the consequences if you don't have that vehicle. How are you going to get to work? How are you going to go to the grocery store? If you have to do different activities, then you'd have to dip into your personal finances to go buy another vehicle.
Right. If you have personal finances. Anything else that we didn't cover on auto insurance rates and possible ways to save money?
No, I think we've covered it all. Again, I would recommend going to our website, tdi.texas.gov. There's some great information on there. You can always ask around, talk to your current company. And then, as I mentioned earlier, just reiterate, it's always good to take a personal inventory as life-changing events happen. I've talked to folks who've, as I mentioned, the child that goes away at college that doesn't go with a car. Talk to your company and see, because you might have an opportunity to save some money if your child is on your insurance but is away at college without a car. They may lower your rates from that perspective since they're not driving a car on a regular basis.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for spending some time with us again, John. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Excellent. Well, that's it for today, folks. If you do want to learn more about auto insurance, including more tips on how to shop, we've got information on the website, like John mentioned, tdi.texas.gov. And if you've got a question that you can't find an answer to there, you can always call our helpline, which is 800-252-3439. And be sure to subscribe to the Texas Insurance Podcast wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss out on any of this important information. We'll talk to you next time.